Hey everybody, 2 o'clock. Welcome to Burnie's Applebox. And I'm here with Paolo Cascio. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Awesome, very good. You know, I intersected you on social media.
Right.
Because you're teaching all the time. And then I got to know you and I was just blown away by your story. First, you've had a total Hollywood career as one. Secondly, you're a director of photography who's also a photographer,
Right.
which means you straddle two cultures there. And I want to find out about that. Plus, you have a very important passion project, which is about the survivors of Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And what you're doing. And you brought a really emotional video with you, I know, that we want to take a look at. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of stuff going on today in the marketplace with photographers needing to learn how to shoot video now, which is what prompted me to start these workshop series. And the Passion Project has been unbelievable. It's been 8 years of my life so far now, and it's been, you know, had it not been crowdfunded to help me along, I don't know if I would be where I'm at today. So I'm real excited to share the video with you, and it's a real wonderful piece to show people and really get the essence of what Pearl Harbor is all about and the survivors that are left. There's only 3 of them left now. So
that's incredible. Well, let's take a look at it.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, let's have a look.
There are things in this world that should never be forgotten, and men in this world who will forever hold our respect. Men that have seen things, endured, suffered, and sacrificed for our way of life, and know firsthand that freedom comes at a price. I'm Paolo Cascio, and I'm a filmmaker, a photographer, and an artist. Having the privilege of honoring some of these men through my photography is something I can't quite describe with words, but they have my promise that I'll do my very best to describe it through my images.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
We all know of the tragedies that happened that day and the ultimate fate of the USS Arizona. Today, only 5 men from the Arizona remain. Only 5 that actually witnessed what happened here firsthand. For them, it's not a story in a book, it's not a movie in a theater, it's not a history lesson. This happened to them. The sights, the smells, the sounds of an event that would ultimately change the world is a very real memory for these men. On the 75th anniversary, 4 out of the 5 remaining survivors will come together at Pearl Harbor to give their final salute to each other and their friends and fellow crewmen that never left the harbor and gave the ultimate sacrifice. The memorial and the days leading up to this is about remembering and honoring the few that we still have left and to the many that we've lost. For me, this is a passion project and one that comes purely from the heart. It's been a long path that has led me here, a path that started with over 30 years of working in Hollywood and honing the craft behind a camera. Along with my passion for documenting veterans, this amazing group of people that deserve our utmost respect for their duty and sacrifice is what's led me here. I want to honor these men the best way I know how, and that's through my photography. By capturing not only what's happening, but the feeling and the overwhelming emotion that's going on here. The thing that I hope to leave behind from this week with these men is a gift to them that says thank you. Nearly half of the 2,403 casualties at Pearl Harbor occurred on the USS Arizona, which was hit 4 times by Japanese bombers and eventually sank. 1,177 crewmen aboard the Arizona perished that day.
We will never forget your courage under considerable fire and seemingly insurmountable odds. We owe you an immeasurable debt, and we can't thank you enough for answering the call of duty when Lady Liberty needed it the most. May God bless the United States of America, which has always been and forever shall be the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This project for me, in this moment in time, may be the most significant thing I ever do in my career. But I see it as a duty, and for lack of a better word, my salute to them and to every veteran that has ever put themselves in harm's way because their country asked them to. To them, I say thank you, and we will never forget.
Wow, that was very powerful, my friend. That's
Yeah, it's
excellent work.
Really terrific job. Those
Yeah,
guys did.
yeah, yeah. And who did that? You Smug Mug, did you say?
Smug Mug Films is, they do highlight videos on some of their artists and their clients. And there's a friend of mine, his name's Anton Lorimer. He does all the filming of those. He travels all around the world, and he followed me around for 8 days while we were doing that. Did, you know, a beautiful aerial shot, which we were just over there again, sort of revisiting that. And yeah, it's just a wonderful film. I get choked up every time I watch it.
No, I could see the emotion. You know, I want to know, you were telling me, but tell everybody, like, how this came about, how you got involved with something like that, because I think there's a lot of times we're just out doing jobs, right? You know, but this is something bigger for you. This is something, tell me about this intersection of coming into this.
Well, I was working on a film in Atlanta called The Watch. It was Ben Stiller and Vince Vaughn, and I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's a producer, and I had just moved to Atlanta because of the tax credits, and LA was just dried up. There was nothing going on, and I remember on the phone with him, and I happened to look down at the newspaper, and it was December 6th, and they were there was a notification about, it was a story about a flag dedication and a Pearl Harbor survivor that was going to be present at this flag dedication. And I thought, wow, that'd be really cool to photograph somebody that was at Pearl Harbor. So I drove out in the rain for 2 hours. They canceled the event because of the weather. And I contacted the VFW the following day and said, I'm a filmmaker and a photographer. I'd love an opportunity to serve this guy and do a portrait of him. Can you please put me in contact with him? Never heard anything back from the VFW. And that December 7th, after that, when I got home, I'm like, I'm going to see if I can find one of these guys that was at Pearl Harbor, and specifically from the Arizona. Yeah. And so it took me 5 years to find him. And when I did, it was actually from Facebook. I found Nikki Stratton, who is the granddaughter of Donald Stratton, and I said, is this your grandfather? Because I saw something about the 75th anniversary, and they were crowdfunding it, and I got all excited. And it was literally like the morning of Easter Sunday when I found out, and Nikki Stratton sent me a message on Facebook, and she goes, oh my gosh, thank you so much for reaching out, and yeah, it's my grandfather, and you should talk to my dad. He's organizing the 75th anniversary. And at that point, after 5 years, I just broke down in tears. I was just overwhelmed that I'd found these guys. And yeah, it's been the greatest. I say it in the video. I can probably say without a shadow of a doubt, it's the most significant project I've ever been a part of. And I've been really blessed in Hollywood. I've done some really terrific films. I grew up working for John Hughes, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was my first screen credit, which I couldn't be more proud of that.
Yeah.
Get to relive that every Thanksgiving.
Sure.
And I got to work for Oprah Winfrey, which, we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we might get into that too, that conversation of how that, opportunity working with her had a big impact on me later on in life.
Yeah, no, I really loved talking to it. And yesterday, I think was, or maybe it was the day before, was the first time I had ever actually talked to you on the phone. But I feel like there is a brotherhood amongst filmmakers, people in this industry, even if you're not on the same level and stuff. You understand how the jobs come to you. And you know what? There's no jobs. You're not just a robot in this business. You're not neutral to things. Everything we do has an emotional component to it. And I think you have to be in tune with yourself emotionally too. You know what I mean? So we come across these things, and I know things grab me sometimes, and we had a great talk talking about finding yourself, sort of, and then we all have this huge drive to do something big, to do something good, to impress ourselves, really, more than anything else.
We all have a little bit of ego that we have to deal with.
We have a big ego to do. It's a good size ego. But then I think, and because this is where I want to go with this, is that you find yourself sometime wondering, what am I really doing here, right? I know you had, I just want to speak to this, maybe it's out of order too, but it moved me so much to hear you say it, where you had a point in your career when you ask yourself, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Recount that a little bit for me.
Yeah, that was, it happened when I was, I'd moved to Atlanta and I was working on a bunch of projects, and I said this a long, long time ago, because we've all been on sets where there's that one guy that's like, kind of curmudgeon-y people. Like, I didn't want to be that guy, and I sort of felt like I was just grinding gears, and I didn't feel really like I was inspired to be at work anymore, which scared me. It's a horrible feeling when you feel like
drive.
If I'm just looking at the paycheck that's coming in that little envelope, I'm not really being true to myself. Like, I consider myself an artist, above and beyond anything, and I never signed up in this business to make money. I signed up because I love being behind the camera. I love creating images, and so I sort of tell people that was my Danny Glover moment, when I woke up one morning, looked in the mirror and went, I think it's time to start finding something else that inspires you, that you really feel motivated in, and if you follow your heart, it's usually
the right way to go.
If you're just looking at your wallet, I mean, let's face it, this is a very difficult industry to survive in. And a lot of people have left the business, or they have alternative sources of income, and
I always sort of feel like every morning you wake up, you've already failed. You have to go back out and get back into the business that day. It's about how you do every day.
And work is what happens in between when we're on set doing this.
Right.
I never feel like I'm working when I'm on set.
No.
For the most part.
Set is the time off from the real world.
Yeah. Exactly. But that moment when I said I want to go follow what I really feel like I'm passionate about, and it was really kind of going back to my roots of photography. I started off when I was 16 years old. My dad got me my first camera, and I went to college. I started off, was working as a photo editor, and I actually won my first award when I was 18 years old. I got a photojournalism award covering a Muddy Waters concert.
Wow.
And I was like, it really, like, the energy, the excitement from all that live music really had a big impact on me. And so I did that. I started off in still photography, and I found myself, when I was on set, all I could think about was, God, I'd love to be just taking pictures right now.
Yeah.
And so I just made a decision that I was going to depart from the road that I was on, which was sort of the studio Hollywood system with feature films and television. And I wanted to just go explore what made me feel alive again. And so I started doing that. And it was right about that same time, like, this whole Pearl Harbor project started really resonating and hitting hard. And my gosh, you can imagine after a 5-year search that, you find
finding the person.
There it is. There's, the big W, like in the movie.
The man world.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm glad somebody knows what the man world is. Thank you. But it is so funny. I've had those moments, actually involved with Facebook too, where you think one for me was when I was a junior in high school. I was in a small town in Oklahoma. And that's when I was 17 years old. And I went 30 years without ever meeting a person who even knew what the name of the town. You know what I mean? It was so small, so little. Then one day I'm on Facebook and I go through it and it says, if you grew up in Hollis, Oklahoma.
Oh my God.
And so I had somewhat talking to one person there that night, you know what I mean? That feeling. I only relate that because it is such an enormous feeling. It's almost something, now you're not my age, I'm older than you, but for people who grew up maybe most of their life without social media, now, because you do, I'm getting at this, you do such a masterful job on social media.
I try.
It's like now we're interconnected in a way that is really incredible. Like even 20 years ago, if you would have had this sort of drive to go and do your Pearl Harbor thing, it would have been very difficult to really share it with anybody.
I would have never found Nikki Stratton.
You would have never found Nikki Stratton. No,
if I wouldn't have been on Facebook.
Exactly.
That's how I found a lot of things. Like and I use it for finding crew now. If I'm in another town, like, hey, I'm looking for an assistant. I'm looking for a lighting truck or some gear. And somebody always jumps in and says, go here or go there. And it's almost like the magical yellow pages of the way.
It's white. And wiped out. I love saying we're not a yellow page business. You know what I mean? And we aren't. Now this has actually almost created a community. You know what I mean? And but in that, you got back, you did your thing, and you had that sort of change. You left Hollywood, if you will, you know what I mean? And then went out and did your whole thing. No one could have been patting you on the back, oh, that's a great move.
Oh, people thought it was crazy.
Yeah, they thought you had lost your mind, right?
Atlanta's building studios, and Clint Eastwood's coming into town. I'm like, oh, that's great. I have my own dreams and my own goals and my own passions I want to go pursue, and it's just not this anymore.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I love film. I just watched The Irishman, and like a bunch of my friends worked on that. And we talked earlier.
Which I think is a fantastic
My
movie.
work doesn't inspire me.
Yeah.
My work is rewarding when I get to see what I've accomplished, especially this Pearl Harbor project. But other people's work is what I look at to inspire me and go, wow, that's really great. And I study the light. I mean, you don't want to go to a movie with somebody that works in this business because they just wow, look at the light. Wow, that's really great. That's an interesting angle. And you're just kind of mentally
Ask
talking.
my wife about that. Yeah.
So, and then my dad, he's my greatest hero. And I remember we were watching a show one time and he goes, hey, it looks like a Steadicam shot. And I lost it. I was cracking up. And my dad's talking about Steadicams.
So how did you traverse that amongst your professional peers when you took this sharp left turn, really, and just said, this doesn't interest me anymore? What was the response there? What was did you lose some support from people, or? I think
whenever you make a strong decision like that to go in a different direction, I think there's always going to be some fallout because you're doing something that people are looking at you like, why? What's wrong? They think there's something wrong with you, and it's funny how a few years after that, I started making phone calls and catching up with people, and they were like closet supporters, really, because they'd say like, man, you're so smart to do what you did, and I wish I could do it, but I got a wife and kids and a mortgage, and I can't make real aggressive changes like that. And I feel part of me feels really sorry for him because, like, man, you got one life to live, man, and you can make such a great impact doing what you're following your dreams for, and a lot of people are just, I hate to use the word stuck because you're only as stuck as you allow yourself to be.
Yes, that is true.
I've been fortunate that I didn't have a family, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a mortgage. I was very flexible, and I've always made very aggressive decisions and taken big chances, and I learned that from my dad. He said, do the things you're afraid to do because you'll grow from them. They'll make you stronger.
That's great.
And one of the things he's
really
always,
good you have that kind of support at
I mean, my parents have always been behind me, even when they thought I was like, oh, what's going to happen now?
Over the top.
Yeah, but my dad, he's always said the calm sea never made a skillful sailor.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
And then, the other thing that I always said to me was, you can never control when you're going to get an opportunity in life. You can only control how prepared you are when one comes. So I've always pursued trying things, experimenting. I've invited people to my studio for photo shoots. I've shot them for free. I go, I just want to try something out here and let's see what happens. And those experimental times, as you probably well know, that's when you get to bring that to a client. A lot of the stuff that we have in our portfolios on our website is things that we did on our own, and a client sees it, goes, I really like that. You can't experiment on a client's dime.
No, you can't. No, you can't. I've used some of my biggest mistakes as a calling card later on, right?
Exactly.
You go, that's crazy. I shouldn't do it, but it looks great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've loved it.
Yeah.
Doing that when you go out, when you're experimenting, doing that. This is not a business about, it's almost like, I'm not going to get this right, but you're being paid when you're on set for the time you have off, not being there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're always putting yourself in the position. You're catching up. Yeah. You're always putting yourself in a position of being available for somebody, for their project. Tell me what you're mostly doing now. What type of work besides this project is it that you mostly do now?
Right. Well, there's a big demand for video content now.
Yes.
Social media with websites.
Yes.
And it used to be like you'd take pretty pictures and you'd put them on a website and here's your bio or here's a little bit about your business. But it's too easy to go like this now.
Oh,
on Instagram,
absolutely.
on any form of social media. So I always tell clients when I'm talking about creating video and telling their story, it's almost like if you take a cat and you put a cat in a room and you put a ball in front of it, they're going to look at the ball and go, yeah, it's a ball. And they're going to be bored in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
As soon as that ball starts to move, the cat's like, hey, whoa, where's that going? And they'll follow that ball for as long as it keeps moving, even if it's going to put them in front of a car and they're going to get run over and killed.
Right, right.
So
they're obsessed with it. Yeah.
We have to learn how to create content, and it's like we're storytellers, right? So if you can tell a client story and have that be engaging, now when somebody's on their website and they're searching for whatever, they get to hear about somebody and what they're all about. And I tell clients, when I'm shooting video, there's only 3 questions I ask anybody. Okay. Tell me who you are, tell me what you do, and tell me why you do it. And out of those 3 questions, you'll derive 90% of the content. The other 10% is sort of ancillary and B-roll where, I love my staff is so great, they support my business every single day. Well, now you cut to the 60 frames a second of somebody engaging and having a good time. And high-fiving in the back room. So those are really important things. And, we talked a little bit about this on the phone yesterday. When I was working for Oprah, she brought Alex Haley in one day. And literally, we're getting ready to shoot this big scene. And she said, sit down, y'all. Alex wants to say hi. And Alex Haley gave us this 45-minute fireside chat. I don't remember anything he said except one very, very important thing that changed my life 25 years later after I heard it. And he said, we work and live in a very powerful and influential industry. And it's very important that you're mindful about who you're working with and what you're working on because it's going to determine where you end up. And that came about after the writer's strike, and I was offered 3 projects that I really didn't want to be a part of at all. And it was one of those moments where you look in the mirror and go, what are you going to do? Yeah. And I just said to myself, I'm going to hold out and not sell out. And that cost me thousands of dollars, and it put me at a tremendous risk because I had given up my apartment in Toluca Lake, just North Hollywood area, to go do a project for Tyler Perry, which ended up pushing and then ended up not happening.
So you were...
And I had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so I actually lived out of my car for 2 months during that time, just trying to oh no, what am I going to do? And I remember a conversation with my father, and he just said, what happened, And I said, I made a decision, Dad, and I have to stand behind it. And he said, well, I'm really proud of you.
That's awesome.
He goes, how can we help you? And I just said, don't slit the cocoon, Dad. If I don't fight my way out of this, I'm not your son. I was crying on the phone. It was very emotional, and it's probably the first time I've told that story without breaking down, probably because the cameras are rolling. But he just said to me, you're going to have things that other people will never have because you're willing to pay a price that no one's willing to pay.
Right. And that's so true.
It is. And it's like, you roll the dice, man. This is Vegas in a lot of ways. But, man, when you roll the dice on something and 5 years later, I got way more than I bargained for. I wanted to take a picture of Donald Stratton in Colorado Springs. I was prepared to drive there. It was 1,000 miles. I was going to do a portrait photo shoot of him and go, I got a chance to photograph a guy that was at Pearl Harbor on the Arizona, and there was only 5 guys left.
Yeah.
And I ended up just, oh my gosh, it's still
so much huger
it's still going.
than that. Yeah.
You know, and now my
Still
book that I've
going.
been working on, and we're planning on releasing that during the 80th anniversary, and it's called The Tribute to Valor, you know, because, but so many people have been behind this to support it. And it's been so rewarding. The military, veterans. I'm actually met a guy last night at the Band Pro open house, and he's 101 years old. And I went up to his son.
At Band Pro?
He showed up for the event. His son is in the film business.
Wow.
And I said, here's my business card. You call me anytime. I would
that
love to
is so
photograph him. They live in
awesome.
San Diego, and so they're going to come by my studio next week, and I'm going to photograph this guy.
That is so awesome.
What a great
dude.
gift to be able to give him, to remember him by.
That's very cool.
World War II veteran that there's not many left.
Yeah.
101 years old. I mean,
101 at Band Pro. That's what
Right?
You guys getting it. He's an AC maybe, you know. No, that is incredible. That's very nice of you to do too. That's a really great gesture.
I love it. Every year I do free veteran portraits. And,
yeah, you know what? There's a couple things that come out. One is just we mentioned this outside too, is like so many of those guys that went through World War II, none of them were ever treated for PTSD or trauma. And that had, in my mind too, being in the generation that was right behind that, you know what I mean? A big effect on the way our society is behaving to this very day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it has an effect. But you also mentioned something else, like when Alex Haley talked to you, you know, and you said it didn't move you as much as it did 25 years later. And I really, really relate to that very big, because I remember there were things in my life that people told me that, you know, oh, I've heard that before, or, you know, like, yeah, right, you know what I mean, I get it.
Sure.
Yet, when I was 45, when I was 50, and very much I was sort of in that transition too, where I was a 40-year-old $50 a day PA when I got in the business.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was like starting over. True starting over, you know, not like intersecting it at a higher level as a grip that was learning or something like that. So for me, it was the same thing. And that's when I really think you start to build a soul. You know, you really have to check in and see who you really are.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many projects that you can do in your career and in your lifetime.
Right.
And if you're doing this, you know, and you'd rather be doing that, you're just going to be frustrated. You're not going to do your best work if you're not inspired.
No, and if it's just for money, go do something. Go into financials. Right. God, you'll make a ton of money there. Yeah, go into real estate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, and almost there have been times, I don't know, where I felt like I wished I was just in it for the money. You know, I wished I was just more money-centric, you know.
Yeah.
Although I'm with you, I too was single most of my life. I could make my own decisions very quickly and just execute, you know, on how I wanted to. It was the ability to be that 40-year-old, $50 a day PA, you know what I mean, that got me into this business.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I totally relate with what you're saying. Now, you also do a lot of teaching, right? You're doing that now. You're going to, what you were at Band Pro, you were just there at their open house.
Yeah, I just came by to say hi and, you know, just kind of check in and make some context.
But you're very interesting because there are so few people that cross the bridge between cinema and still photography.
Yeah.
And I did not understand this for a long time, being in the industry and coming in the cinema side of it, of what hugely different workflows there are. Tell me what you talk to people about in that, because so much more demand is being put on photographers to do video.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it actually started in Chicago. I was trying to organize a workshop at ProCam in Aurora, Illinois.
Okay.
And there was a gal named Sherry Hagerman who's a very, very successful wedding photographer, and she was on the speaking circuit. And we met one day, and she said, wow, you know what, you should really come and teach, because there's photographers they don't know how to shoot video. They don't know how to create stories, and they're just kind of pushing the video button, which doesn't make you a cinematographer. It makes you a guy recording video, and it's a lot of it's tourist footage, for lack of a better analogy right now. But I started thinking about that. I'm like, wow, that might be an interesting thing, and I didn't really take it seriously until recently, and so I created a workshop called Cinematography for Photographers, and it's helping photographers learn how to tell stories and learn how screen direction works and eye lines and compositions and having room for graphics and titles when you're shooting for a client.
Sure.
And also just, filtration is huge. You can't take a DSLR camera out to the beach and go into video mode. You're going to be at a 2,000th of a second shutter speed, which at 24 frames a second, that doesn't work. You're going to staccato and it's going to be clipping. So massive amounts of neutral density filters and IR filters and polarizers and monitors and sliders, and like there's a lot of content. So one of the things that I break down in my workshops is showing this is how photography works and this is how cinematography works, and they start looking at the comparisons and going, wow, this is like an apple and this is like an orange. Like they're both fruits, but this is a completely different story. And it's amazing the feedback that I've gotten from teaching these workshops across the country now, because they say, I had no idea there was this much to learn about shooting video. And people have been shooting video, but unfortunately they've been not doing
a correct way
what they could be doing if they were taught properly. I can go buy a set of brand new golf clubs. It doesn't mean I'm going to be on the PGA Tour. And I could go buy a Ferrari. It doesn't mean I'm going to be next to Marco Andretti at the Indy 500. So they need to be taught properly, and hybrid photography is absolutely the way to survive in the marketplace today. You can't have a client say...
You really can't do... Well, maybe you could do one or the other. I suppose you could do one or the other.
They want the same person's fingerprints on it. If they see your photography and go, wow, you have really beautiful stuff. Do you shoot video? And they're like, I can't shoot video. Well, that's not the answer your client wants. They want to see the video stuff look just as good as the photography,
the still stuff,
and they want to see that all come together under the same direction of the same person. And the guy that can do both successfully and well, and so it's engaging content for the client and they get more business, that's the guy that's going to get the job.
And what you're seeing out in the marketplace, how many people are actually mastering that?
Not very many.
Not
very many at all. I mean, there's a lot of people that are shooting video, but unfortunately, clients can't see the difference between the Toyota Camry and the Aston Martin. They just see it, and that's all they know. If that's all they know,
that's going to be good enough.
It's like showing somebody a Polaroid Instamatic and then showing them a DSLR that shoots 4K. Like, what is that? And all of a sudden, now they see, like, this guy was shooting something, but it's not like what this is. And so I think, educating the client is really important, and giving them, our job is to advise and consent. Really, across the board in everything that we do. And I learned that from a very dear friend of mine, who's a very, very successful television director, Guy B. We worked on the TV show ER together. He's a Steadicam operator. And we had a conversation one time about like how arguments and discrepancies and those little, difficult moments, we've all seen them happen on set where there's a disagreement and people aren't communicating. And he's like, look, it's the ultimate decision is up to the director. It's his, but you have to advise on what you feel is the best way to approach a scene, or why a camera should be in a certain place, or how the coverage should be done a certain way. And if they say, well, I don't want that, I want this, you have to, that's your boss. And hopefully you've done your homework so you realize that this is someone that I want to work with, that I want to collaborate with. We're collaborators. It's not about me.
It's all collaboration.
There's no, what did Vince Vaughn's stunt double said something really funny one night. He said, hey, you know what? There's no I in the word team, but there's 2 in the word idiot. And the whole crew lost it. We were laughing so hard, but it's really true.
That is true.
We're all spokes in the wheel, and the wheel is the project. And the hub of that wheel is the director. And all these people stem out from the director in one way, shape, or form. And I'm just a spoke in the wheel, and I'm just trying to hold my position and do my job and inspire and set a good example for my crew and others around me.
Yeah. I think that is so true. It's such a collaborative effort, you know what I mean? And the farther up you go, I mean, I always think, now I'm a gaffer. That's what I've always marketed myself on. That's what I've always been. Most of my sort of financial history in the business is I've owned gear and I've gone out, and I have multiple trucks, so I can go do multiple jobs, and a bit of gaffer. Now I'm getting too old to even go out. So, that's one thing. But for me, it's always been very much about the collaborative effort of it, because I've worked under a DP and I always felt like I was there to serve that vision. Of course, the DP I recognize is there to serve the director's vision.
Right.
And that goes right in line. Frankly, that was one of the funnest things. The reason I liked it the most was the collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Well,
it's collaboration, but it's also trust, because if
big
I tell
time.
you where to put a light, I'm not utilizing your skill set. But if
That's
I say,
exactly
Burnie,
right.
this is kind of what we're after, and push a light through here, and I'm looking for this. And if you understand what my tastes are cinematically and how I like to put a key light or a little bit of fill or no fill, you do your job how you do it. I'm explaining what I'm after.
Yeah.
You use your skill set and you do what you do, and I don't want to micromanage anybody. It's a waste of time. It's exhausting, and frankly, your crew resents you because, man, this guy's going to sit over my shoulder and tell me how to do my job. Nobody wants that.
Right. Well, and another thing is, too, and this is what, I would always tell the crew, I go, don't get frustrated. I go, we are on sets lighting every day. Some of these people only get to do it once a month, maybe, in the type of shoots that they're working and stuff. And I always felt like it was such a great thing to be able to bring a suggestion to somebody.
Absolutely.
And that was really the funnest thing,
And they could come from anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
And if your crew trusts you and you respect them, an idea can come from anybody. I've had loaders come up to me going, hey, did you know that there's this thing going on back here? And it's like sometimes the best shot, we've all been there, is behind where you're looking.
You turn around and go, oh
yeah,
we're
gosh,
shooting
thank
this
you so
way.
much. It's like, wow, great idea, whoever.
Yeah.
And that person feels empowered,
Very
they feel
much so.
respected, they feel appreciated. They're
Very
going to
much
bust
so.
their butt and work twice as hard for you because you paid attention. You didn't say, hey, mind your own business, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
We've all seen that happen.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It doesn't end well, ever.
And I think there is amongst people who are insecure, that's a gut instinct to say, no, wait, do it my way. You only do this.
You're absolutely right about that.
Honestly, most of my career, once I got to the level I was at and working with people, and then you kind of go through a process too, even as a pro like that, where you're going through your first wave of crew. In other words, you're learning how to be a good manager. And some of the people stay, some people go. But then you collect a team around you that is really trustworthy and really good. That is where I got really good, because it was just like letting go. Right? You want to try that? Let's do it. You know what I mean? Let's see what that works.
And everything rises and falls on leadership in any way, shape, or form.
Yes.
People don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad leadership.
Oh boy, isn't that the truth? Thank you for that. That is really good. The one thing that I have always pushed in here, this whole industry is about leadership. It's about having a good leader at the helm and taking everybody down the road. It's actually too bad, because it's I won't say it's not common, but I wished more attention was put on that, because a lot of people miss that. They go back to this creativity idea. You know what I mean? Creativity is just about being given the freedom to be creative. And having somebody who supports you and can do everything you need to do. That is the freedom to be creative.
Right. And speaking of creativity, we were talking about this earlier, that one of the greatest quotes I ever heard was from Helen Keller, and she said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight without vision.
Yes.
And
that's really good.
When you share your vision and everybody's on the same page and they understand what the creative goal is, now everybody's tuned in to the same radio station singing the same song. Instead of like, I got headphones on and I want to listen to this and I don't care what you're listening to, but I'm going to go do my own thing. It's frustrating when you're in that. But that's our job, that's our responsibility as department heads to collaborate, and we all need to tell our crew what we're after, so that way everybody understands and has a clear idea of what that is.
Yes, very much so. Tell me about your film history. Now, I know you worked with John Hughes, you know what I mean? And immediately, as soon as I go home and I tell my wife you worked on Home Alone 2, this is going to be, oh, well, what did he say about it? What did he do with it? What was does he know Macaulay Culkin? Does he, you know? So, I mean, she is a total, I mean, huge Home Alone fan.
Yeah.
You know, it's an ongoing joke with us, obviously. But, tell me about working with John Hughes. Tell me about the Hollywood experience when you got it. Give me that first flush, because I know so many young filmmakers are out there. Everybody thinks they've got to do the big feature or they're not worth anything, and they better do it by the time they're 30 or their career is over. I mean, there's so many cliches, you can just go down the list, you know. But tell me about your experience. Tell me what you learned.
Right. Well, I started off, like I said, in still photography. I was self-taught and just was doing that. I went to Columbia College in Chicago, and so I learned film making there, and from there I went and worked at a rental house, and so I got to learn the mechanics.
In Chicago?
In Chicago, yeah. It was a place called Victor Duncan, and a couple of my other classmates that I went to the film school with were there. And during that time, my boss said, when you don't know how the equipment works, it becomes 80% of your focus. And when you understand how everything goes together, that's 20% of the job, and 80% of it is how you apply it and where you put the gear and all that kind of stuff. So I started off doing commercials and freelancing. I did a lot of stuff for POP films, which people don't understand what those are. They were called point of purchase, and you'd walk through Sears and you'd see a lawnmower commercial or a washing machine or a tool set. And so we would shoot those on 16 millimeter film. And I did a lot of those. And then I did a lot of commercials and stuff too. And then when I joined the union, you had, there was a certain amount of time that you had to, sort of get in at the right time, because it wasn't like now where you just apply and they accept you. You had to be like invited in. So I started off working, Lucas was the very first movie I ever worked on, and I loaded film for Peter Kuttner, who invited me to come out. And then I started working for John Hughes. Shortly after that, I did Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which was
now, how
the first
did you intersect
credit.
John Hughes? How did that happen?
I was working, because I came out of the rental house, I had a great advantage because I knew all the camera guys in town. And so when the movies would come along and they needed crew, they're like, oh, he knows the gear really, really well, and he's got a great relationship with the rental house. And so I got a lot of opportunities as that, but you still had to do your job. And so I worked with John, I think, on 5 films, and it was just a pleasure. I mean, it was a real family experience. And I remember Curly Sue, which was the last film that John ever directed, when we would change setups and we would, sort of come around, turn around, however you want to say that, he'd put music on, because he had the Warner Brothers whole music collection. And the crew is literally like dancing and moving lights around and stuff. I'm like, man, this isn't work. This is like a party.
This is like a movie.
We had such a great time, and John really embraced his crew, and it was a real family. And you ask anybody that worked on a John Hughes film, they'll all say it was a family. And I really feel like I came up during the best time with that. And then Oprah had a very tight crew as well. She had a lot of people that were around here that had been with her a long time, and
you
she loved everybody. And
Oprah the same way you were in Chicago, right? And she was the big game in town.
Yeah, she had her own studio, which unfortunately isn't there anymore. But that was a great time to come up, and she approached her crew the same way John Hughes did. He would say hello to anybody. Nobody was alienated. It wasn't like us and them, and like, well, why do I need to talk to you? And she would say good morning, and it was funny. Oprah used to buy us Popeye's chicken every Friday night. And she would look at me and she's like, "You go get some more. You need to eat more. You're too skinny," because I was like this scrawny little 24-year-old kid when I was working for her. And we were doing a scene one time in the restaurant, and I went up to the prop guy and I go, "Dude, can I get that Long John? How many donuts you got?" Because I love Long Johns. He goes, "No, man." He goes, "We need that for the scene." So we're rehearsing. And Oprah she goes, "You want one of those donuts?" And I said, "Oh my God, I love lunch." She goes, just take it." And the prop guy looks at me and he goes, "Really? You had to go all the way to the top on that one to get that donut?" So it was really funny.
That's fun.
Yeah, I had a great time there, and I had a lot of great memories, and got a chance to work on some really great films. I did Steven Seagal's first movie, and
All of this was out of Chicago,
Yeah,
too.
I spent 17 years in Chicago, and then I moved to LA in 2002. I took a little break in between there. I kind of did some work in advertising. I got a little frustrated with the way things were going, and I took a little break 20 years in, and then, you know, it's like when it's time, it's time. I think you just need to be honest with yourself and not be afraid to take those chances and go follow your dreams.
Oh,
and,
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
You don't have to stay in this business. It's a great business.
No, you don't. No, I think, my favorite saying is it's like prison. Everybody can tell you how they got in, but nobody's going to tell you when they're going to get out, right?
It's true.
But you know what, just something I thought of there, you were sort of really a first wave of people who could be in the business, be in the top of the business, and didn't have to move out to Hollywood either. And I think there's more and more of that certainly now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are in Atlanta, they can move up in the business like that. Chicago was always a big city. New York was always a big place for filmmaking as well. But
yeah, there's so many talented people in Chicago. I mean, we would always get frustrated and like, why are they bringing all these guys in from LA? There's perfectly, and I understand it now because I've seen both sides of the coin. It's not that they don't trust that those guys can do a good job. It's the unspoken dialogue that we all have where, like, I know where he's going to want to put the light, and I know what kind of diffusion he's going to like. So it's a second-hand sort of dialogue that I don't have to teach this guy and ramp him up. It's like, I got this new dance partner, what do I do with them?
Right.
When this other guy's like, we don't even have to say anything, we just get out there and do what
dance.
we do. But there's more and more local tax credit incentives now that allow people to stay in their own markets. Like Atlanta is a big market.
Much so.
Chicago, New York, they just bring in department heads now, like a key grip, camera operator, gaffer, sort of like the holy trinity, like your gaffer, your key grip, and your
you're going to have the guy that's close to the
cameraman.
camera, and then everybody else is local hire. So many things are going on in the industry right now. I mean, I really honestly feel like I'm just a lucky survivor, to be honest with you. And I know you relate to that. I can just tell by the way you said
Sure, Well, we all have things that we've kind of gone through, and you can rewind, but things change. I mean, that's inevitable. And
it is.
You either roll with those changes, or you go reinvent yourself and you find something else to do. And a lot of people have done that. I mean, this is a great business to be in when you're in your 20s and your 30s, and I can honestly say my Pearl Harbor project would not have been as successful if it was had I not learned underneath the tutelage of guys that I got a chance to work with as I was coming up. I started when I was 20 years old. So I started very young. And you took all that information and ended up here. You know what? We've got some pictures. I want to get to those too, because I always do this. I talk right through the pictures and we're done. Okay, bye. But let me get to that first. First of all, I guess the best way, Tony, is just let's show the pictures and Paolo can narrate. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
This is the USS Arizona Memorial, and this was the one and only double interment in the history of Pearl Harbor that I photographed, and this is going to be one of the key images that are going to be in my book.
Yeah, okay.
And that was taken from the shrine room on the Arizona during a prayer ceremony where they were getting ready to bring the urn out and give to the divers to swim out onto the ship.
Mm-hmm. And now I think
Yeah, and there's the divers going out there. It's a really beautiful ceremony to see that, and you can go on YouTube and actually see an interment. There's underwater footage.
And tell me about this. You were telling me about this with these urns like that one. What do they do? Where do they put them?
Sure. So the way it happens is that the diver on the left and the right of the diver holding the urn, they actually swim him out. It's almost like a water ballet, and the last thing that you see is the urn actually submerged underneath the water, and in between, I believe it's the second and the third deck on the ship, there's a shelf, and all these urns are placed on there. And Lauren Bruner, who was just recently interred on December 7th, he was the 45th interment in Pearl Harbor, and according to everything that we know at this point, he is the last one that's going to be interred on the ship in all of Pearl Harbor history. So it was a very, very special ceremony.
Incredible.
And this is a picture that was taken at the 75th anniversary, right after the double interment. That's Lauren Bruner on the left that was just interred. Donald Stratton in the middle, who was the first survivor that I found, and then Lou Conter is on the right, and he was the last Arizona survivor that stood on the memorial, and that just happened recently on December 7th as well. And I actually had an opportunity to do a private photo session with him prior to the 7th, and it was really, really special. I photographed him by himself and him with his entire family that had come over to celebrate with him.
The families must be so proud of these guys.
Oh gosh, it's really something to see.
Yeah, yeah.
This was a ceremony for Joe George, who is the sailor that threw a lifeline from the Vestal to the Arizona. He saved 6 people from certain death, and 2 of those were the survivors that you see in this picture, Donald Stratton and Lauren Bruner. They went hand over hand on a lifeline and were rescued. And this was the only ceremony in the history of Pearl Harbor where a medal was given on board the ship, and it took like 15 years for the Navy to recognize. It was a really, really special ceremony. And Joanne George was there to receive the Bronze Star with a Combat V on her father's behalf, because obviously he had passed away much earlier.
And you said these guys on that lifeline too were actually on fire.
Hand over hand, yeah. Donald Stratton had burns, unbelievable burns, and he'd spent a year in a burn ward. As soon as he got out, he re-enlisted again. So that last picture that just came up here, that was...
We can put that up again, Tony.
Yeah, that's actually the superstructure, which is the top part of the Arizona that was actually sticking up out of the water, and so they had torched it off and they put it into a field. It's under a 12-foot high razor wire fence, and they were given sort of artifacts from the superstructure that are in shadow boxes. That's Ken Potts on the right, who lives in Provo, Utah, and Donald Stratton in the center there, and then Lou Conter is on the far left.
And you said this is where the part of the superstructure that was sticking out of the water.
Correct. That's the Arizona sticking up out of the water, and they removed it because it was.
And then they put it in a very undisclosed location.
Yeah, it's under lock and key out somewhere in Hawaii.
Yeah, wow.
That's actually a shot from Tribute to Valor. This was the last time all 4 of them were together on the Arizona Memorial.
Wow.
And it was a very, very emotional experience. I remember taking that image of the 4 of them together, which I'm sort of saving that image for the coffee table book, but I remember literally trembling taking these pictures because I realized what was about to go down.
How old are these guys now?
So Donald Stratton is 97, Lou Conter is 98, and Ken Potts is 99.
Wow.
We just lost 2 survivors this year, Lauren Bruner and Lonnie Cook. This was a really important turning point in my sort of photographing veterans. This was at Arlington National Cemetery, and that is Rocky, I'm blanking out right now, forgive me. Edwin Ramsey was the man that was given the burial, and that's his wife Rocky, and this was, Edwin Ramsey was the last cavalry under MacArthur. Then they defeated the Japanese with the Philippine Army, and he was given this full military ceremony. And I remember Rocky had called me up after the ceremony was over, and she said, "Do you realize you got the one shot that nobody else got out of the entire photography crew that was there?" And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yes, when I was handed the flag, you're the only one."
Wow. Wow.
That got that shot, and I get a little choked up.
Is that
every
her
time
right there?
Every time I tell that story, because
Yeah.
it was such a relevant thing for me to be able to see that, and I realized that I'm doing something so much bigger than a movie. With my credit at the end of it to go like, "Oh, I worked on that."
Yeah.
And they're great bar stories. Let's face it, we sit around and talk about all these experiences we've had, but to say that you photographed the last guys that were ever on the USS Arizona, like, nobody else can say that.
No.
You know, that means a lot more to me, honestly, than anything else. It's just a significant thing. There's my dad. That's the first portrait I ever took. And what's really interesting about this is the picture that you'll probably see in a little bit here was Paul Murphy, who was on the USS Indianapolis, and I found him 3 years into my search for the Pearl Harbor survivors. And you notice those 2 images back to back, they're almost identical.
No kidding.
And I didn't stage either one of them. I just captured it. I put the light in the same spot, and I Paul Murphy was this beautiful man and very jovial and happy and go lucky. And I just said during the photo shoot, Paul, I'd love to get something maybe a little bit more serious from you. And he literally turned and dropped his gaze. And if anybody knows anything about the Indianapolis, it was a ship that was they were on a secret mission carrying parts for the first atomic bomb, and nobody knew where they were, and they didn't send out a distress call. So those guys floated out in the ocean for 3 days before they were discovered, and they were getting eaten by sharks. And it's the story in Jaws.
I was going to say the story in Jaws.
One of my mentors, Bill Butler, shot that movie, and when Paul took that picture, I said, thank you so much. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Wow.
He just like nothing ever happened. He said, yeah, I was just thinking about how I never want to drink salt water again for the rest of my life. And when I took that picture and he dropped his gaze, I swear I felt like the blood run out of my body, and I literally took my breath away. I took one shot. That's the only shot like that. I didn't let's do a couple more like that. We got it. That was a one take, and that's all I needed.
That was it.
So I called him back when I found the Pearl Harbor survivors, because he's like, I hope you find them, and I hope you keep looking, and I really appreciate what you did.
So awesome.
His wife called me back in tears because I left a message saying I found the Pearl Harbor survivors, and I didn't realize that he had passed.
Oh, my God.
And Mary Lou, his wife, called me up, and she said, you have no idea how difficult this phone call was for me to make. And she started crying.
Yeah.
I get emotional telling the story. She said, she started crying, I started crying. She goes, that picture meant everything to our family, and that will live on in history with our family. That picture meant so much to him.
That is so huge.
How you can't get a bigger thank you there. That's so much bigger than a credit on a movie.
Yeah.
And, just...
Let me get this over
here.
Yeah, pull that over. I want to show everybody that. This is the cover of the book that is going to be coming out, and this is... when is this scheduled? This is on
so
inside pictures.
Yeah.
This is okay.
Open it up.
Open it up. Okay. Oh, we're streaming off of this. Got it.
Yeah.
So just so everybody knows, this was really a family heirloom book that I put together, and I didn't know when I was going to find a publisher for my book, and I didn't want the survivors to not get a chance to see all these beautiful images that I took of them. So this was a Christmas present given to all of them this past year, and my gosh, I'm so glad I did it, because we lost Laura Bruner, and he got a chance to see these images, and just really, they're just memories for a lifetime that these families are going to get to enjoy now for the rest of their lives and pass on through their families generationally.
I hope this people understand this. There's so many things we do in our industry that are fleeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This stuff's forever.
Yeah.
This is really forever. There are people in hundreds of years that are going to understand what happened just because of these photos.
There's the flag being handed off at the double interment, and it's really, really special. There's Donald Stratton and his wife Velma. They throw rose petals. Not rose petals, but the Hawaiian flowers into the opening of the Arizona Memorial after the ceremony, just sort of to remember and reflect on the person that was being celebrated.
Wow.
So, but this is that's just a little teaser of what went out to the survivors' families.
Yeah. But no, that is really very fantastic. Paulo, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for coming by.
It's been a pleasure.
This is one of the best shows we've ever done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
it's great to share.
Yeah, no, it's really great message. I hope everybody takes something away from this. But that is it this week. Thank you, Paulo, once again for coming by. And we will see you next week on Burnie's Applebox.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Cut. That's a wrap.